Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, where are the Red Raiders in relation to the radar? We'll also get to one of the most anticipated position groups we're looking forward to seeing on the field in the fall, and the latest from Lexington next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. Before we are out of here today, we'll get to some of the latest going on as it pertains to our conversation yesterday. Some coaching ripples expanding in the basketball world. Could it get near the shores of Lubbock, Texas? We'll get to that before we are out of here, and some of the latest involving Kentucky's search for a new head coach. But want to kick off our conversation today within Joey McGuire's Red Raiders spring camp. And we'll get to a position group, specifically the tight ends, that I think potentially, Chris, is one of the most dynamic, one of the most exciting, maybe one of the most impactful that Tech will have going on either side of the ball. We'll talk about some of those individuals. It's a mix of returners and newcomers that we're going to be counting on. And in general, diving back into spring camp, Chris, I don't know if others are noticing or not, but it seems like to me there is a little laying low kind of vibe that's going on through spring camp. And maybe that's just kind of comparing and contrasting some of the excitement that we were hearing a season ago. I haven't heard about any point spreads or any things like that as it relates to this team versus the previous year's team. And, you know, credit Coach McGuire. I heard him a couple of weeks ago talking about, I'm never not going to be excited for our team. So consider me guilty if you're talking about me hyping guys up or being excited about our team. So I'm sure he still is. But there does seem to be some type of, I don't know, laying low, flying under the radar, whatever you want to call it. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah, you know, he's not. He hasn't said something like, "Hey, you see that team over there? They could beat the team that just walked out the door." You know, I think that's what you were hinting at. I mean, look, Joey is. I tell him this all the time. Actually, I tell his sweet wife, Debbie, this all the time. It's not about if the glass is half full or if it's half empty. It's about who's pouring the water. And when your husband is pouring the water, like, people are going to be optimistic. He's going to be optimistic. And I think that there's no shame in that. Do they want to shout from the mountaintops, we're winning the Big 12 and everybody else just stand in line? No, I don't think they want to do that. You know, especially when you have a huge question mark on the offensive line, when you have a quarterback that you've had to kind of, you know, shut down, and you've got a lot of youth on defense and some question marks on that side of the ball. I think that you have a lot of potential answers, in a lot of these spots too, but I do think that I don't know if anybody's made like just this conscious effort. Hey, Joey, be quiet. You know, like, hey guys, I'm going to be quiet or whatever. Part of it too, I still think that it's still awkward for spring right now, in that you're in this weird transition with your like facilities too. And so you don't really have home base. They're doing media out in the parking lot in a portable building. They're doing, they can't really use the stadium, so I think some of that has led to some of the awkwardness and, whatever, as far as spring football as well, because you can't have your spring game in Lubbock, as we know. So there's just lots of transition going on right now. But yeah, I probably picked up on some of that hadn't been just lots of promising going on, and I'm okay with that. But I mean, he's telling you, I mean, I'm not going to not be excited, man. That's what I do, and that's why he's here. That's why you want him as your coach.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to rein in to any extreme extent a guy who has contagious excitement like that. But I do kind of wonder, still early on as far as being a head coach relatively on this level, being a guy who's got that kind of media attention, the white hot spotlight local Lubbock media attention, that can melt a lesser man. We all know that. But I do kind of wonder how he might evolve, if at all. And maybe it is just more attributed kind of what you have described. But I wonder if he may evolve a little bit as to how he kind of handles the microphone or what he's going to say at certain points in time. And, from a team perspective, I really don't think it's just, zooming into higher expectations seamlessly, even without another Baron Morton storyline taking place here in the spring. I think it would be, warranted to wonder if this team could take a step back, or do they continue to try to establish some momentum as a program, get back to a bowl game again, et cetera. I don't think we're going to be anticipating any kind of dark horse conference title contender conversation. At least I don't, but there are a lot of reasons to that beyond just what kind of season they had last year. A lot of it has to do with vacant shoes that have to be filled, which we've been running down here this week, whether it's in the trenches or in large numbers in general on the defensive side of the football. I mean, there are, at least in my opinion, plenty more questions than answers as to what this team is going to be. So I could understand being below the radar, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I think you'll see this team talked about in terms of like Big 12 predictions. We're starting to get into that. List season. You're starting to get into all the kind of post spring top 25 type scenarios and all those things. I think that the Red Raiders will be somewhere between like 4th and 9th in most conversations, as it relates to like Big 12 predictions. Some people will look for the glass half full portion of things, and some people will look at the glass half empty portion of things, and depending on how they want to mold their argument. But yeah, there's a lot to like here, but there's plenty of questions too, and it's just kind of eye of the beholder on what you really believe in there. But I mean, I think the Kansas States, the Utahs, the Arizonas, even some Oklahoma State, West Virginia, are going to get a lot of credit based on the year that they had, based on what they have coming back. Totally understand it. I think then there's like the Kansases, the Texas Techs, the TCUs that are like, okay, they could, make some serious noise, but they could also, not be what people had hoped either. So, and I may be leaving somebody out there, but but that's kind of the gist. And I think that, I'm okay after kind of last year and the way it played out. I guess I'm kind of okay with a bit of the under the radar. It'll be show and tell soon enough. You have a loaded home schedule, and you can really start to build some momentum here early. But we're a ways away from that. But I'm kind of okay with under the radar, and we'll sit here on some of these shows the rest of the spring and the summer and point at people that are disrespecting Texas Tech and tell them why they're idiots. But I'll just say in my heart of hearts, I'm kind of okay being kind of sneaking around the chicken coop a little bit, or telling my dog Fred, hey, come on, Fred, come on, and pushing the stroller. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't really know, making the case as to why someone would be an idiot if they got a low expectation may actually be fairly difficult, because I don't know what position group, really on either side of the ball, maybe the linebackers, running back, maybe, even though you're really looking for some depth, is like immune from really wondering what it's going to be, because even some of those that you've seen some good things added to, say like your group of wide receivers you expect to be a little bit different this year. Well, we hadn't seen it yet. They've just been added. And then you've got, obviously, with your offensive line, defensive front, defensive secondary, even now your quarterback continues to be a storyline. I mean, like I said already, you've got more questions than answers, I think, in more spots than not. I want to pivot to one of those position groups that has got a mix of some returner, some newcomer impact, and some, head-turning factor, I guess I would say, through spring camp so far with some of these guys in particular. One of those I want to get to first is Jalen Conyers, who was a big addition as far as that story goes. Unfortunately, has not been able to be full tilt during spring camp, but obviously a lot of excitement about what he can bring to the table whenever the fall does arrive. And I want to take a listen to tight ends coach Josh Cochran talking about Jalen Conyers. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, slam dunks, and all in between, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what's the holdup? Get in the mix now on all the action by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I want to take a listen to tight ends coach Josh Cochran talking about Jalen Conyers.
I think Jalen has a pro mindset, that mindset that Coach McGuire's always talking about, you're accountable for your future. And so he's as little as he can do on the field right now. He's doing a heck of a lot behind the scenes, meeting extra. He's a film junkie, loves the game. He's in every meeting. He's going to be a huge contribution to the offense. I always hate an injury like that, but we're not worried about him. He's played a lot of ball in his past, and so we're not too worried. We know he'll be ready when we put the pads on in August.
He is one of those guys, like Coach Cochran makes a reference to there, that has seen a lot of football, obviously on this level. So maybe not as concerned as you might be with him missing time, but he's one of the guys I'm also more excited to see actually out there, Chris, because of some of what we hear about the versatile ways in which he could be used by Coach Kitley.
Yeah, he's this is as close, I think, to your middle linebacker position on your team as you can get, as far as like answers or kind of checking some boxes on. We feel really good about like who may start, for example, or like our proven depth, our numbers here. The upside here, like we've got the now, we've got the future, we've got some present. You've got you kind of checking a lot of boxes here with the tight end position, like I would say your interior linebackers as well, and Conyers is a big reason for that, because I think it's like a sure thing, okay. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean he's he's guaranteed to have a monster season or anything. He's a proven commodity at college football at the Power 5 level. And I have zero concerns about, and plus this is kind of, I'm come home scenario, from Groover, and this is ultimately where I really wanted to be. I'm excited to finish it out. And he's known Baron Morton for a long, long time. And there's just a lot of things there. And then I think he's, we were talking about that the other day about, coaches wanting the older players that come into their program to be the right kinds of guys. So the younger people can see this is how we really want you to do it. Well, right now, like Trey Jackson, your freshman, your true freshman from South Oak Cliff, who's, a year or two away from, needing to play and all that. I don't know, maybe it'll be next year, but either way, he's learning from Mason Tharp and Jalen Conyers. Pretty two good examples. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the best compliment you can give a guy like Conyers. But yeah, he's a versatile guy, man. Wildcat QB, and he had about 1,000 total yards over his period of time in Arizona State. So he's a weapon, and this is an NFL player in my opinion. I firmly believe that Jalen Conyers will play in the NFL. I mean, that's his build is there, the production is there, the tight end position is back. I firmly believe he's an NFL player.
Man, that would be great to see come to fruition, and really hoping that some of this potential comes to fruition and is realized among these tight ends, because I feel like you've gotten into the era of kind of like Tharp and Baylor Cupp previously, where physically you're pretty imposing when you could keep those guys on the field, and there were some injury issues that were resulting in some inconsistency. I don't feel like your group of tight ends has realized their full potential in some of those years. Is that fair to say? I mean, you've got some guys on campus, and then you'd see them out there flashing, and you're like, whoa, look at this dude. I mean, you can't teach size like that, much less some of what they can do from a skill set. But unfortunately, some of that beyond their control. The next week, they may not even be suited up. They'd be on the sideline injured, or the impact just kind of goes away. It's been sort of hit or miss. So I'm still kind of looking for that group to really assert themselves as what it seems like they have the potential to be.
I think this is why they have now 5 of them, and you kind of have the classes staggered because, like last year, I mean, Mason Tharp missed, 5 games? Baylor Cup basically played the entire year with a pretty serious shoulder issue. I don't know if he missed any games, but I mean he was gutting it out, man, and very limited. And the shoulder harness told you a lot of what you needed to see there. And then you had Jaden York, so it really kind of there wasn't near as much. But I mean, you've got them staggered now because we'll talk about John Carlos Miller here in a second, but. Jason Llewellyn, who was an OU signee out of Aledo that you kind of had some interest in, one of the top tight ends in the country coming out of high school. And he's coming here as one of those preferred walk-on types and all that. It didn't necessarily work out for him in Norman. And then Trey Jackson, who you signed. So you've got, again, the now kind of the depth pieces and then the future. So there's some depth here. But part of it is, they need to stay healthy. And Mason Tharp, he's had lots of health issues and things like that. So you just hope that because if he stays healthy, I think he's an NFL guy too.
I was going to say, why could he not be?
Exactly. But it's just an availability, I think, thing with him. So this is a fun position to talk about because there's some bells and whistles here that I think could really create some mismatches for the defense here, and this is fun to discuss.
Yeah, maybe one of the undervalued bells and whistles, getting back to the head-turning factor that a Tech fan may not know about just yet because they're not out there every day at spring camp and seeing some of what is going down. And obviously this guy, a newcomer, a name you mentioned, and John Carlos Miller. Before we get to him, let's get back to Josh Cochran on John Carlos Miller.
Athleticism, I'll say that. And a special person too. I don't know if y'all have gotten to be around him much yet, but when you meet him, you're going to be a better person because of it. He's going to have a huge smile on his face, and I tell him every day I'm just blessed to get to work with him because of what he brings to our room. But as far as a football player, I mean, he's made some catches in these first 8 practices that, just kind of leave our eyes wide open. We just haven't seen that. And then obviously he can run, he can jump. I mean, he brings a level of kind of rawness coming from the FCS level that a coach loves because it's almost like a lump of clay, and you can kind of mold it how you want it. And he has all the tools, he has a work ethic, and we're really excited about him.
Kind of sounds like some reports from spring camp are this guy is stealing the show on some occasions.
There's 2 things that I should tell you about John Carlos Miller. One is I've worked with Rivals.com for a long time, and so with that, you've been in the business. You get to know people that run publications or do media, or then our radio component too, Callan, in the background. And so, I've known some folks in Columbus since I got into this back in the early 2000s. And I had one of them reach out to me in mid to late January. And he's like, we were catching up about something else. And he said, you got a tight end down there that they thought they were going to steal from you. And I'm like going, okay, who are you talking about? Ohio State had reached out, I think on or the days before classes began at Texas Tech, trying to keep John Carlos Miller from enrolling or sitting in classes because they were still trying to recruit him. And and all that. I think one of the staff members told the guy that I was talking to is like, dude, I mean, that guy's got a chance. And so if I don't, tell you anything else, or you don't hear anything else about John Carlos Miller, just remember that little tidbit, because that's pretty sweet praise.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, they're like scratching and clawing, going, dude, don't sit in class. I mean, like, come on, what can we give us another chance? We didn't know our number, whatever it may be. But anyway, he was.
That is also from Don't Come to Play School University. So they may be telling their own guys enrolled at Ohio State, don't waste time in class, guys. Get to the weight room, get to the film room. Don't waste time in class.
But to his credit, I think that he was just like, man, I appreciate it, but I'm thrilled to be here. I'm happy here. Yeah. Everybody's told me the truth here, and all those kinds of things. But and you hear Josh Cochran talking about him, just kind of what a great personality he is. I think he's very intelligent. He's kind of lights up a room type guy, but he's really twitchy. He's got the ability to kind of, this is going to be, I think we can say, and I don't feel bad about even mentioning this guy, but remember how Jason Morrow was kind of like, is he tight end? Is he receiver? Yeah. Like, and he kind of blurred the lines there at times because of what he was able to do and because of how he was utilized. I think John Carlos Miller has got some opportunity there to blur the lines on what position is he playing exactly? Because, you can line him up on the line, but he's going to be a guy you can line up outside in a one-on-one situation. And, you've got a problem for the defense, I think, with his ability to go up and get it and just run. So,
yeah, that Amaro era really allowed me to learn a couple of things. Number one, what a farce the Mackey Award is. Lost all credibility in West Texas that year. You got to have your hand in the dirt. What are you talking about? But number two, I really love a slot receiver pairing where one guy is 8 feet tall, the other guy is 3 feet tall. Amaro Grant was probably my favorite tandem I've ever seen sort of play the same position on either side of the line of scrimmage together. That was quite a mixture. But, man, I am an old school fan of the tight end, once upon a time. And some of this from a Tech fan perspective, results in or relates to how much opposing tight ends have punished us in the Big 12 Conference. You think of some of the great ones that have come through the league, and it always seemed like at those times, like, where's our guy? Do we even employ a tight end at Texas Tech in some of those years? Then you kind of get back to doing some of that. But as I said a moment ago, with this most recent era and some of the physical gifts that this group has had, you're still kind of waiting on them to really become one of the best groups in the Big 12 or one of the best aspects, most reliable aspects of the Texas Tech offense. And maybe this will be the year that it happens. Either way, as you're just outlining some of the numbers in that room, it's good to feel like Joey McGuire and his program are invested in pursuing quality tight end play in depth, right? I mean, this is a position that they seem to care about.
They're all in on it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like the big man in basketball. I mean, the tight end is definitely back. I mean, you've got quality ones here. You've got, I think, professional tight ends here in this group. And you've got some big time upside. They're going to continue to recruit them. And I think that they will continue to utilize like 12 and 13 personnel groups in games, which is, one back, 2 tight ends or 1 back, 3 tight ends, because they are that determined to, have this position, be a part of what they want to do on offense. And it's tight ends are some of the best athletes on the team because they are asked to do a lot. It's kind of like a running back. Hey man, it's not just about you catching the ball. Like I want to be fed, but it's not just about you, route running and all that. It's about blitz pickup. It's about, just being able to run block. I mean, you got to be, good at a bit of everything when you're going to be a quality tight end, so we can't take you off the field. And there's a lot of one-dimensional tight ends out there that are like, well, he's a blocking tight end or he's a pass-catching tight end. And you just want good tight ends, which means they can do a little bit of everything. And I think you've got a good group of them here. You could tell the smile on Josh Cochran's face. He's having a good spring.
Yeah. I really think that position is one also that can make you very effective in the red zone, man. It just always seems like tight ends in the red zone near the goal line are worth their weight in gold if you can use them in the right way. So hopefully that's going to be what we're seeing coming up whenever fall rolls around.
Last thing I'll say, you've seen this too. I know you have. Why don't we use, Tharp or insert tight end name here? Why don't, or just the tight end group in general? Why don't we use them like they use Kelsey in Kansas City?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, yeah. I mean, why don't you? Well, it's because that dude is like a Hall of Famer. It's because he's maybe one of the best to ever do it, and he's catching passes from one of the guys that's the best to ever do it. They make it look easy. That's more of a compliment to them than it is like, hey, you boneheaded tight end coach and whatever school you're coaching at, just use them like Kelsey. Again, that's not exactly how it works, folks. I mean, I wish it were that simple. But
a man can dream, can't we? Hey, use something like Mahomes.
Yes. I mean, I'm all for using our tight ends more like, but that, yeah. Please leave Josh Cochran alone on that. I mean, and Zach Kitley and whatever. Those are like freaks of nature on the same page. They're reading each other's minds. They're doing it at the highest level, the championship level. So, anyways, there you go.
We're all on the same page and dreaming the same dreams. We'll just assume as fans that they're feeling the same way as well. So if it's possible, I'm sure we'll see that happen. Okay, before we get out of here, I want to switch gears, Chris, and get back to the land of college basketball and the coaching carousel, the ripple effect, whatever you want to call it. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you never will, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it begins if you get a little distracted at the tailgate. That means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Also, the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets. Not just fast, however, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. The coaching carousel, the ripple effect, whatever you want to call it, as a result of John Calipari leaving Kentucky. And as of some of the most recent indications last night, there was big-time money, like $11-12 million a year on the table for Dan Hurley. There was reporting that Scott Drew was Kentucky's first call. And also, because this is how this relates to Texas Tech, obviously, wondering what may happen in Waco if there was to be a vacancy there, if Scott Drew was to head elsewhere. But there was also some indication that Jerome Tang would be very high on the list as far as the Baylor Bears filling any potential vacancies. So I don't know if anything has changed as far as the likelihood or lack thereof of Scott Drew actually making a move. But and I don't know if it's much of a surprise necessarily, but you did see Jerome Tang kind of emerge and join that conversation, maybe lead that conversation as to who some targets could be.
We could spend a whole show on this. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. Like, the Kentucky thing is not for everybody, so we're clear. John Calipari, his wife, sent out these statements, hey, it's time for us to step aside, all those things. The Kentucky thing is just a different animal. The only way this relates to the Big 12 or Texas Tech at all is if Scott Drew were to take the Kentucky job. Otherwise, I think the Big 12 remains untouched and Texas Tech remains untouched. If Scott Drew accepts and I think Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director at Kentucky, got really close with Scott Drew and just the Baylor in general, because the COVID year when they won the national championship, he was on the committee, like the committee member maybe that was assigned to, they all had different schools they were assigned to. So he was basically bunkered in with Baylor the whole tournament run for the 3 weeks or whatever that it went on. And I think was with them, at their highest of highs there when they won the whole thing. And so I think there was a relationship that was built. That's why you were seeing, but I think you talk to people in Waco and it's like, man, I'm not so sure that he would entertain that, because money will be more at Kentucky, but is that extra money, is it really worth it? The pressure, the fishbowl mentality, all those things, whereas he could come, just come back home and where his kids are, and I think his daughter's like a sophomore at Baylor, and they're building a home and all these different things, but if you win at Kentucky, you're going to be thought of differently, and maybe, you're thought of, differently on a more national scope than if you just win at Baylor. I don't know. It just depends on what people want. But if Scott Drew were to, and I think we're going to know something rather quickly. At the time we're sitting here taping, nothing is materialized, but Kentucky won't let this drag for forever. They're going to move on quickly. Billy Dunn. I don't think Coach Hurley is going to take that. I just don't. I think he's initially kind of said no. I think they're circling up more money, and I've seen some different things. I think you could argue he's got a better job now. So that's, but. And you're right. If Scott Drew were to take that, I think that it gets real interesting in Lubbock and in Manhattan, and they'd be crazy not to want to talk to Grant and Jerome Tang. Those are their guys. Grant played there, coached there. Obviously, Jerome Tang spent 20 years there, so they would have some nice options there to choose from if Scott Drew were to go. You know what? I think I'm going to take this Kentucky deal. I think we'll know something quickly though.
Would prefer that if possible, but if we need to drag a conversation out and revisit it day after day after day, we're down. All right. Appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy the insight, and we'll be back on the other side to do it again. Thanks, Chris.
Enjoyed it. Keep hope alive, everybody, and we'll see what happens as the day progresses and all those things. And I think you got some visitors coming into town this weekend from a basketball standpoint. Football team scrimmaging, Masters Week, all that stuff. A lot going on, man. Keep hope alive, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. We appreciate you being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.